Hey guys, welcome to the vlog. My name is MisterET and we're finally getting to that point where we have just a few little things to button up and then we can actually drive this thing and see how this new engine feels. Stay tuned. So as you can see around me, there's a couple little things that we need to do. So we've got some wheels and tires that have been mounted and balanced, so we've got to install those. We'll talk about the tires in a few moments. We've got a little bit of coolant to flush and ensure that that works properly, so we've got to cycle the engine. We've got a little bit of oil left to add because they had given me 5 quarts and this requires pretty close to 6 quarts. And then we've just got a kit here from Canadian Tire, which is basically an automotive shop like AutoZone or something like that for you guys in the US. So we've got to recharge our AC system as well. So as soon as all of that's done, the only other thing we have left on the car is to reinstall some trim panels or some panels that go underneath the engine here, and then we're ready to drop her back down and get things going. So let's first talk about these tires. So as you can see guys, these wheels are in pretty fantastic shape for wheels that are close to 7 years old now. So there's very little curb rash, there's very little issues with them. They were easy to balance. I didn't have any issues with mounting the tires. We did go with, I would say, a budget tire in the stock size. So we've got a 225/40/18 on a Mazdaspeed3. And we went with a Minerva Eco Stud tire. Pretty aggressive winter tire that will help us get around here. Unfortunately, I would have loved to put some brand new summer tires on this thing, but there would have been no way to get around to really test this thing out. And so we decided to go with some winter tires for now. So what we're going to do next is we're going to install those 4 wheels and tires onto the car, and then we're going to move to buttoning up the rest of what we need to do. So guys, anytime you're reinstalling lug nuts or wheels back onto a car, there's a number of things that I like to do. So I like to tighten them using my impact at a very, very low setting just to get them on there and to get them seated. And then I come back with my torque wrench and I tighten them in a crisscross pattern. So what we've done here is the service manual talks about 65 to 87 pound-feet for these lug nuts. I've actually gone with 80 foot-pounds. Used to do 79 on Hondas, and I've never lost a wheel up to now, so that should be plenty for us, and we won't break any studs or anything like that. So what you want to make sure that you do is you set your torque wrench, and then when you're going on this thing, make sure that you hear it click a couple times, so that way you're sure that you've got the right torque pattern. And again, crisscross on this here. And for that lock nut, make sure that it's properly on there before trying to tighten. And there you go. So that way you make sure that you're never going to have any issues with your wheels when you're installing them. And the last thing you want to do is once you get the car back on the ground, you want to check your tire pressures by looking inside the driver's side door. There's a sticker. It's going to give you some PSI pressures for front and rear, and you want to make sure that you have that amount of pressure in your tires. So just a quick tip there. Guys, look at this thing. I was just reinstalling the wheels on the car, and one of the lock nuts actually broke, and I could see that it was starting to crack when I took it off. So you know, whenever you're installing these types of things on your car, you always have to be wary of that because they're really not that great to uninstall when they break. So these types of keys and everything like that, you have that on a lot of cars. And around here, when they start rusting and everything like that, that can do that. So inspect them anytime you remove or install them, and if you see any signs of crack, replace them right away. It's lucky that I've been working on cars for just about 20 years here. I had a bunch of these lugs lying around, so I just swapped one on so that wheel will not be locked, but we're fine to continue. So I'm just missing 0.7 liters. Not sure exactly what that gives me in quarts, but I'm just going to add that back in. And this engine will be good to go. So guys, we're just about there. We've reinstalled the front shield at the bottom. We've finished filling this up. The oil is filled up as well. We've cycled the engine a couple of times off camera with my wife to check for anything on the coolant side. We have heat inside. There doesn't appear to be any issues. So now we're getting to the AC. So I'm just going to go inside the car. I'm going to put the fan at 1. I'm going to put it all the way down to the coldest possible. And we're going to let the car run a little bit and get through this refrigerant here. So let me just do that. So now that this is empty, what we need to do is disconnect this. I'm going to do this in the backyard door here, and I've got my gloves on so I don't get any of this on my hands. We'll put the second bottle on and we'll continue. So we've got a second bottle here. Make sure that the needle that is inside of this isn't going to poke through. Basically get this on all the way. Get this back on here. Okay, and then we'll turn the car back on. Closer here, as you can see, we're holding steady pressure. This is starting to drop now, so we'll see if we can open it a little bit more, or we might have just enough in the system. If we go inside, we should start having some cool air. And that is quite the case. So the AC system is now recharged. So guys, now that the system is bled for AC, all we have to do is put this black cap back on. And that is good to go. We did a final check on everything, and everything is good to go. So the next step for us is going to be to drop this thing back off of the quick jacks and go for its maiden voyage. And once we get back from that, we'll check coolant again once it's cooled off to see if we're at the maximum line. If we're not, we'll add a little bit until we get to the maximum line. If we are at the max, we'll just leave it that way. We'll check the oil as well to make sure that everything is okay and that level is good. And then we'll reinstall the last shield that goes underneath the engine. And that's going to be it. Guys, the Speed 3 is back on the ground. Look at this thing. All we have left to do is remove the quick jacks from underneath the car, and we'll be able to take it for its maiden voyage. Oh, and yeah, we gotta check tire pressures as well. Well guys, I'm actually sitting in the Mazdaspeed3, and I'm gonna take this thing on its maiden voyage. So let's see how it actually drives. So it's going into gear, which is quite positive. Car is moving under its own power. And we are rolling. First gear, doors just locked. The roads aren't very comfortable because it's snowy, as you can see, and there's snow everywhere. Let's try these wipers. We've got the auto feature. There we go. So that works. Turn signals work. Not hearing any weird noises. Of course, getting it all dirty. Just gonna have to wash it again. I actually started it in second gear and it did just fine there. So the clutch is doing quite well. Winter tires seem to be working okay. Let's take this thing on a main road. Hear the Turbo Smart blow-up valve. Just take this down here. Okay. Fans work. Heating seems to work. Seems to be accelerating fine. Goes into every gear fine. We're actually in fourth gear right now. I can see whenever I'm hitting boost on the dash. All the gauges work fine. The check engine light is on right now, so I'm gonna have to investigate that. But aside from that, everything feels fine. And it's funny because off boost, this actually feels more responsive than my Mark 7 GTI. Of course, the Mark 7 GTI has 210 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. This has 263 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. And this has a 2.3 liter engine instead of a 2 liter engine, so there's a bit more bottom end torque, and you can feel that just driving around. This drives quite beautifully, honestly. Suspension works fine. The brake seems to work fine. There was quite a bit of surface thrust on there, so I was expecting them to drag a little bit, and not hearing any noises or anything. The steering wheel is straight. Now we're getting to the highway here. Were good. Let's go. There's 80. There's 100. There's 120. So let's stop there. So this is actually quite responsive. I'm not feeling any vibration or issues or anything like that. Power, I would say, is about on par with a Mark 7 GTI. It's not really that much quicker or slower or anything like that. And I do feel like the suspension's a little bit stiffer in this car. This is the stock suspension. Not smelling anything weird or anything like that, so everything seems to be good. Yeah, this is actually working really well. This is a pretty fun car to drive. I believe it's got a mechanical limited slip differential. has automatic rain sensing wipers and automatic headlights. For 2013, this is actually quite loaded. I think the only thing it's missing compared to a car today is probably just the backup camera. But aside from that, this is a nice car. I'd like the seats to hold me in a little bit more. They do look nice, but they don't hug you quite that much. So as you can see, we've got the check engine light. But aside from that, everything works really, really well. I'm impressed by this car, guys. I'm going to be removing this thing. I think the previous owner just stuck that on there, and it's kind of broken, so I'm going to be taking that off. Hopefully it doesn't leave any residue or anything like that. But aside from that, this baby is done. So if we have a look at this thing, so as you can see, it's a bit filthy right now. This is its first winter driving of its life. This has never been winter driven. So we won't keep it outside too long because I don't want to start doing that today. But let's say we open the hood here. Let's see. So let's see if we got anything. So this was the turbo smart blow off valve that you guys could hear. I don't see any issues. Everything still looks great here. No leaks. I'm gonna check the oil to see how that's doing. So I was getting a very, very small leak close to where the oil pan is. So I want to see if that's a bigger leak or what it is. Well guys, we just took this thing on its first maiden voyage, and aside from looking like crap after being outside in the winter, you know, it did pretty good. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this content. Stay tuned for some more videos on this as we look at how it drives, give you a quick review of it, and we tear into this engine to see what actually blew up. So I will see you guys in our next video.